I stood at the edge of the Sedona overlook, the late afternoon sun painting the red rocks in shades of fire and rose. The wind tousled my hair, and I felt a freedom I hadn't allowed myself in years. My phone buzzed in my bag. Again, a flurry of messages from my sister, Maddie. "You ruined our vacation," she had typed, followed by an angry face emoji. I let out a breathless laugh, tracing my fingers over the soft leather strap of my bag, feeling the pulse of quiet triumph beneath the anxiety. No one knew I had secretly booked this flight, the one that took me here while everyone else was still packing their sunscreen and snacks for a week of predictable family fun. I was supposed to be the obedient, fun sister, the one who smiled and went along with the plan. Instead, I'd slipped away, quietly choosing my own adventure. The smell of coffee from the small cafe beside the overlook mingled with the scent of pine and sun-warmed rock. I glanced at my reflection in the glass of my phone, composed, confident, but my eyes betrayed the storm of emotions underneath. Hurt,
Excitement.
a little fear,
Pride.
maybe even a hint of guilt. And yet, as the messages kept coming, my chest swelled with something else entirely: relief. Relief that, for once, I had chosen myself. Relief that I was finally untethered from the expectations that had kept me small. And most importantly, relief that no one, not even Maddie, could take this moment away from me. I remember the day like it was yesterday. I was 24, sitting at the kitchen table in Mom's sunlit house in Scottsdale, my hands wrapped around a mug of lukewarm coffee, trembling more than I wanted to admit. Maddie was leaning against the counter, arms crossed, eyes sharp as knives. "You can't just leave everything," she said, voice tight with frustration. "Family trips aren't optional. Mom and Dad planned this for months." I felt the familiar lump in my throat, that knot of guilt that had followed me since high school. But underneath it was something else, a spark I hadn't let myself recognize before. Anger, yes, but also longing. Longing to be seen, to be trusted, to make a choice for myself without the weight of judgment pressing down. "You don't understand," I whispered, voice barely carrying over the hum of the refrigerator. "I need this. I need space. To figure out what I actually want." Her laugh was sharp, almost cruel. "Space? You think running off to some random place is space? You're selfish, Liv. You're ruining everything." I swallowed hard, fighting back tears, my fingers clutching the chipped mug like a lifeline. And then I remembered Grandma June's words, whispered to me when I felt small and afraid. "The world belongs to the brave ones who dare to take it." Her words were a seed in my chest, pushing me toward the unknown. And that night, after everyone else went to bed, I opened my laptop, booking a one-way flight that no one would ever know about. My heart raced with fear and excitement. That night marked the first time I truly chose myself. I wasn't running away. I was stepping forward, stepping into a life that was mine and mine alone. That flight to Sedona was just the beginning, though I didn't know it at the time. After that trip, I quietly started reshaping my life, brick by brick. I rented a small studio apartment in Phoenix, tucked away on a quiet street lined with palm trees, where the neighbors never asked too many questions. I threw myself into work, anything that could keep me moving forward, away from the weight of family expectations. It wasn't easy. I took odd jobs at first, freelance design projects, digital marketing gigs, anything that promised a paycheck. Nights stretched long into early mornings, my laptop screen glowing against the darkness, my hands stiff from hours of typing, but my mind buzzing with ideas and plans. Doubt crept in often. Was I making a mistake? Would anyone ever notice my work? Then I met Claire, a seasoned entrepreneur with a boutique branding firm. She had a presence that was impossible to ignore, confident, calm, and unapologetically brilliant. She saw something in me that I had only begun to see in myself. "Liv," she said one evening, leaning back in her chair, "you've got the vision, but you've been hiding it. Stop apologizing for being ambitious. Stop pretending you're not capable." Her words struck me like lightning. I started taking risks, pitching clients I thought were out of my league, designing campaigns that pushed my limits. Slowly, the wins came. My first big client, a campaign that went viral, my first profitable sale, proof that I could survive and thrive without anyone's approval. I even began saving, small at first, then more steadily, building a safety net that gave me real freedom. Through it all, I kept my success secret from my family. Social media posts were carefully curated. A cute coffee pic here, a sunset there, nothing that revealed the magnitude of my achievements. They still thought I was struggling, still assumed I needed their guidance, and all the while, I was quietly becoming the woman I had always wanted to be. Independent, confident, and unstoppable. The knock at my door came just as I was finishing a glass of red wine, the warm Sedona sunset spilling across my living room. My heart skipped a beat, not with fear, but with anticipation. I opened the door to see Maddie and Mom standing there, their expressions a mix of exasperation, confusion, and curiosity. "Liv, we wanted to see you," Maddie said, her voice uncertain, the earlier anger tempered by hesitation. "We thought you'd be, struggling." I stepped aside and gestured for them to enter. "Come in," I said, voice calm, steady. "Let me show you what you missed while you were busy thinking I ruined your vacation." They stepped inside, and I could see their eyes widening almost immediately. My apartment was modest in size, but decorated with deliberate care. Shelves lined with books I had poured my life into, walls adorned with my own artwork and framed designs from recent campaigns, and a sleek desk where my laptop and awards gleamed in the late afternoon light. Even the faint scent of essential oils and polished wood suggested a life lived with intention. I motioned to a digital portfolio, playing quietly on the screen. "All of this," I said slowly, letting my gaze meet Maddie's, "is mine. Every client, every campaign, every achievement, I did it on my own. You thought I was failing. You thought I needed saving. But this," I gestured around the space, "is me choosing myself." Maddie's mouth fell open, and Mom's eyes welled with tears. "Liv, we had no idea," Mom whispered, voice thick with guilt. I smiled, a mixture of triumph and compassion. "And now I didn't ruin anything. I just chose a different path than the one you expected. And it's working." Their shock hung in the air, heavy but quiet, as they absorbed the truth. I wasn't the struggling, dependent sister they thought I was. I was a woman who had carved her own path, flown her own flight, literally and figuratively, and thrived. The weight of their assumptions had nothing on the reality I had built for myself. For the first time in years, I felt the balance of power shift entirely. I wasn't just Liv, the good sister who went along with plans. I was Liv, the woman who set her own terms and had the life to prove it. Maddie and Mom stood before me, unsure of how to respond, and I realized this was my moment, not for revenge, but for clarity, for setting boundaries that mattered. Before we move forward," I said, letting my words hang in the warm Sedona air, "there are some things that need to change. Not because I want to punish you, but because I can't repeat old patterns." I looked at Maddie first. "You need to stop treating people's independence as a threat. Stop thinking your choices are the only right ones. I want you to explore something you've always wanted. Art, music, travel, anything that makes you feel alive without needing my approval." Mom's eyes shimmered with tears. "And you, Mom," she asked softly, "you need to stop apologizing for other people's failures. Start trusting me. Stop trying to control my life, and instead, focus on your own growth. Maybe take that yoga teacher training you've been talking about for years, or volunteer somewhere that makes you happy. And no more guilt trips about vacations or plans. I won't accept them anymore." They nodded slowly, uncertainty mixing with relief. I could see it, the spark of realization that change was possible. This wasn't about me being cruel. It was about demanding respect, about creating space for each of us to flourish without judgment. I felt a quiet satisfaction as I added, "And lastly, we're going to communicate honestly from now on. If someone wants something different than the plan, we talk. We don't guilt, we don't shame. That's non-negotiable." As I spoke, I could feel the power of my choices ripple through the room. This was more than a conversation, it was a declaration. I wasn't just living my life, I was defining the terms for how everyone around me would interact with it. Firmness and compassion, side by side, was the only way forward. Weeks passed, and change began to settle quietly, but unmistakably. Maddie started taking weekend art classes she had always dismissed as impractical. Mom signed up for that yoga teacher training she had dreamed about for years. They weren't perfect. Old habits lingered like stubborn shadows, but the effort was real, visible in small smiles, soft laughter, and conversations that carried warmth instead of tension. As for me, I often found myself standing on the Sedona overlook, the same place I had first tasted freedom, reflecting on how far I'd come. The city lights below twinkled like distant stars, but I didn't feel small anymore. I remembered Grandma June's words, the ones that had nudged me toward independence. The world belongs to the brave ones who dare to take it. I ran my fingers over the edge of the small silver charm she had given me years ago, tucked safely into my necklace, feeling the same pulse of courage that had pushed me to board that secret flight. I realized that choosing myself hadn't meant abandoning my family, it had meant giving them the space to grow, while giving myself permission to thrive. I had endured pain, doubt, and loneliness, but each challenge had been a step toward the woman I had become, resilient, independent, and unapologetically authentic. And in that moment, watching the sun dip behind the red rocks, I understood the truth I had lived for. Freedom wasn't just about escaping, it was about creating a life that no one could dictate and showing the people who mattered that love and respect must coexist with boundaries. I smiled, whispering softly to the wind, I chose myself. And it was the best decision I've ever made.